Good evening, St. Louis, and welcome in to the City Central postgame here on STL Sports Central, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. I'm Matthew Rocchio. That's Will Bratton, and we're here to break down a wild, insane late night for St. Louis City SC in Salt Lake City. They fall 3-2, but there are a lot of very interesting things. There are some positives to pull out of the chaos of the final 30 or 40 minutes of that game. But before we get started, Will, how you doing tonight, sir?
Well, I'm doing pretty good.
You seem to enjoy yourself during that game a little bit.
I did enjoy myself during that game. I like watching young players like Yasiel Orozco make something of the opportunities they're given. So I did enjoy that match, and I always enjoy watching Joao Klaus score, as we know. I'm a big Joao Klaus fan, so I'm having a pretty good night. Yeah, this is a match that doesn't hurt me so bad because City didn't play that terrible. It was 3 freak goals scored against.
Yeah, let's run down those goals. By the way, in the 6th minute, City drops early, going down 1-0 to a Noel Kaliskin goal. This one comes off a headed away corner kick. Good job by the defense getting rid of that set piece, but unfortunately falls right onto the foot of Kaliskin, and he hits a half volley right past Roman Burke. That's the first goal Kaliskin has scored in 21 MLS matches. He had 2 MLS Next Pro goals across 13 matches over the last 2 years. So an absolutely insane goal. You're talking about ones that you wouldn't expect to see ever again. Yeah. That's goal number 1, and that's unbelievable goal number 1. Goal number 2, Diogo Goncalves, yes, big mistake letting him get that much space behind the defense, but nonetheless an insane goal, as with that space, he takes on JGR 1-1, and then just a ridiculous bending shot that, I mean, no one would have a chance at, kind of like Pompeu against Sporting Kansas City, except this one hits just inside the post, about midway, through height-wise, past Berkey. An absolutely insane goal. So RSL is leading 2-0 going into halftime, and then things got a little wild, a little crazy in the 51st minute, just 6 minutes into the other half. St. Louis City SC strikes back, makes it a 2-1 game with Joao Klaus, a in-swinging cross or corner, for Marcel Hartl. Klaus was somehow unmarked for the most part. He's able to beat Glad for the header, and now right then it's a 2-1 game. Then the next thing that happens, things open up. We see the MLS debut of Tyson Pierce coming into the midfield, but right after that happens, another piece of transition against St. Louis City SC, and this time it's Josh Yaro sticking his leg out trying to stop the ball coming inside, and he gets an own goal. We'll talk more about that in a minute, because to your point, all 3 RSL goals, absolutely insane. Very low chance you'll ever see them again. But continuing on what would later happen, City does get an insane goal of their own. Another corner from Marcel Hartl, this time contested by Makai Joyner in the air, falls into the arm, shoulder, leg of a defender, or Josh Yaro or Yasiel Orozco. Either way, City leaks one in, makes it 3-2, and then that was in the 80th minute. In the final about 15 minutes of the game were about as insane of any 15-minute stretch we've seen from St. Louis City this entire season.
Yeah, that was absolute chaos, very entertaining. And you got to give credit to the young players for, despite such a ridiculous match, playing really well. I mean, Yasiel Orozco on SofaScore ends with a 7.3 rating.
Insane game.
That's 3rd highest for St. Louis City. That's unbelievable.
Right now, I think some of the stat lines have him having the second goal. Does SofaScore have
SofaScore does not have him with the goal.
That's insane. So the
goal.
Fact that he has that good of a rating on SofaScore without the goal,
that's crazy.
Yasiel Orozco was incredible. Talk a little bit more about what really jumped out to you about Yasiel Orozco. Obviously, his ability to step up. He's playing a lot of center back with City too. I think that's because they have more midi winger type bodies to play at the fullback spots.
Right.
But he comes in, plays left back. We were surprised to see that after he got the short-term call-up. But, man, he absolutely had a fantastic game for St. Louis City.
Yeah, I noticed 2 things really specifically with Yasiel Orozco. I noticed that he keeps the ball very close to him. He's very, very controlled with the ball, or at least was in this match. Of course, we've seen him do this with City too as well. But in this match particularly, he had the ball glued to his foot, and he was quick with his decision-making. So he wasn't, he wasn't getting dispossessed a lot. The press wasn't a major issue for him. It looks like he lost possession a total of 8 times. And for a left back who's going to be playing a lot of passes up to Simon Betcher, who's not really like a left winger traditionally, a lot of those are going to get picked off. And he also had the two lowest rated St. Louis City players, Ustrak and Yarrow, as his two closest players to him on the pitch. And they got dispossessed a lot as well. So if he's passing to them, he's going to be giving up possession. So, I mean, for me, that's a great stat. He won his only aerial duel. He won 6 of 7 ground duels, which is fantastic. He had 3 tackles, 100% success rate, I believe, on tackles. And this is the one that sticks out to me, Rock. 92% accurate passes on 49 passes. 55 out of 49 were completed. 73 touches. I mean, he just had a fantastic game. His technical ability really surprised me. And I was also impressed at how well his spatial awareness was able to translate into a faster-paced MLS match. I've seen him do this with City 2, and I've noticed with City 2 as well that he's a standout there in terms of his situational awareness and just understanding where he's at physically on the pitch at a given moment, as well as where his teammates and the defenders, or the attackers for the opposing team are in a given moment. But I was really impressed with how that translated, because you don't see that for a lot of younger players making the jump. But there is an advantage here, and that Yaziel Orozco, this is not his first MLS match. It's just his first MLS match with St. Louis City. Believe it or not, he's from Real Salt Lake. He was picked up after being placed on waivers and signed to City 2 in this past offseason. So a signing that probably went under the radar for a lot of City fans, but he may have just earned himself a supplemental roster slot with this performance tonight, because Rock, he was outstanding.
Get into the chat. STL Sports Central here with the City Central postgame presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Ace6583 Rob says, it seems this team just can't catch a break. I just put this on Twitter, Will, talking about how all 3 goals are kind of ridiculous for RSL, but at the same time, yes, it's a crazy goal for Goncalves to score. The second one, yes, we can get into the insanity that even though the offensive player was offsides, that Josh Yarrow was trying to cut the pass out for. Because it's an own goal, the offsides doesn't matter. We can get into that stuff a little bit later. But in both of those plays, you got absolutely pantsed in transition. And in both of those plays, RSL was able to get their left winger against your right side wide open in space, because one was the first half down, going left to right on your screen, and the other one was going or right to left and left to right. So both times it's on the exact same side. Now, I was critical of Thomas Totland's role in the goal last week in Houston. Here's the thing: before we haven't got to really break down 100% of those plays yet, the goals 2 and 3 in the transition, because yes, that's both on Totland's side. But another thing we talked about in the pregame: St. Louis City's formation right now is pushing the fullbacks up crazy high.
Yeah.
And even more so than the left back, Totland is always up crazy high right. So is he getting beat and allowing those runs from Goncalves, or more likely what I'm guessing what happened, because this is usually what happens when Totland gets beat in the open field. Him getting beat in the box is his own problem. Him getting beat in the open field is usually because somebody had a stupid turnover higher up in the field or in the middle of the field, and then Tots is just
he's left
in a place where he has to run 60 yards, and running 60 yards is running 60 yards. So I'm not 100% sure, but the bottom line is, yes, the goals are insane, but the process that leads to the goals is extremely problematic. City is bad in transition defense right now. And is that the defensive problem, or is that an issue with the midfield, which has also been a problem with the offense and why they didn't score in the first half?
Yeah, for me, it's 100% an issue with the midfield. You can't, in my opinion, you can never fault the back line for transitional moments. It's because transitional moments are what put the back line in a position to defend, one-on-one, or defend, a 2-on-1 or something like that. It's the transitional moment that gives a defensive line that their moment to play. Yeah. It's on the midfield to not let the transitional moment happen. Obviously, unless the back line gives the ball away on a high press. But anything in the middle third or final third that's a transitional moment is always on the midfield for me, in 90% of cases. And so for me, when you're looking at a midfield with Conrad Vollum, Tomas Ustrak, and Marcel Hartl, you do have a little more physicality in a couple of guys who are going to stay home a little more in Ustrak and Vollum at times, and especially Vollum in this match did stay home, honestly, a lot. There was really one moment that he stepped up after Joao Klaus scored that first goal and stepped up into the middle third and broke a line and made a progressive pass that Rock and I mentioned. It stood out to us while we were watching it because he hadn't done it all game. Awesome. Usually he does that a lot. That's part of his game, but it was obvious that his job, or part of his job tonight, was to sit at home and play, defensively. And that's a result of what you get when you have fullbacks who need to be so high up the pitch, because you need another central defender sort of to stay back. So you at least have a couple of numbers back. And then that's what leads to those situations in transition where you have your two guys back with a guy right in front of them, and your two fullbacks are just way up, and there's so much space in like an arc shape kind of around them and inside of that whole mess that transition moments can be played through on the dribble or on the pass. And so for me, it's all the midfield in those transitional moments. Now, once it gets to one-on-one defending, like you said, if Tots is one-on-one in the box, it doesn't matter how he got there. If it was his fault or not, that he got there doesn't matter.
He has to
it's his job to make the defensive play.
But I think he got exposed by some bad turnovers in the midfield, and that's the big problem with this team, because they don't have any health in the midfield. Durkin's out, Leuven's still out. They're both working their way back. They could be back next week, but they're both out of this game. Ustrak had a solid game. You saw what Tomas Ustrak can do. Just a progressive player in both the practical sense of the word and the soccer stat sense of the word. He's going to move the ball forward. He's going to retain possession, and he's going to dish the ball off. It might not always be forward and progressive, but it's always going to be an ability to recycle the play or move it forward. I like what Tomas Ustrak gave them in his role. Yeah, he's never going to break games open in the way that Edward Leuven is. That's why he's a sub for the Leuven role, is because he can do parts of the game, but he doesn't miss taking the top off. And that's always going to be the difference between great players and good players. And that's the difference between Edward Leuven and Tomas Ustrak. But Tomas Ustrak was good. We saw early 2024 Tomas Ustrak again today, and he was very solid. Conrad Vollum, to your point, solid game. When he had to play the deep lying six and plays an extra defender, especially early in the first half, to keep things tamped down. I know it was down 2-0, but for the most part, he did that. In the second half, things opened up a little bit more, especially when Tyson Pierce got in there. Again, he's playing a lot of fullback in City 2, as well as center midi. So Tyson Pierce plays a more sitting back defensive role, which allowed Conrad Vollum just to kind of take over the Ustrak role, get forward a little bit. So while I have a lot of questions about what they were doing at some points, there are some bright spots. And while we're talking about them, your thoughts on the other debutant for St. Louis City SC, not just St. Louis City SC, but the MLS debutant, Tyson Pierce. I would argue he's probably second if you did prospect rankings for St. Louis City SC, behind Makai Joyner. Obviously, he's the other homegrown off-roster player alongside Makai Joyner. So your thoughts on what we saw from Tyson Pierce today in his first MLS appearance?
Yeah, I thought Tyson Pierce was solid. He's a smaller guy. And so you have to use, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you have to know how to use it to your advantage. Obviously, we've seen with City too that he does know how to use that to his advantage. But he was also playing out of position here. He's, traditionally a right back. In this situation, he subbed Tomas Ustrak off and was playing another holding six kind of role. So kind of a pivot player. So he's got to be very agile, very able to turn. And honestly, I thought he did well. He was 11 for 12 on passes, only 19 touches. He was only in there for 27 minutes, didn't do anything insane. He won 2 of 3 ground duels, 1 dribble attempt that was unsuccessful. He only lost possession 3 times, which isn't a great number, but again, it was all these transitional moments for City was probably where he was losing possession. And so look, he wasn't a standout for me, that he had a good or great match, but he held his own. And that's a very good sign going forward. This is his first MLS match ever. So, this is what is he, 17 or 18? I can look at this very quickly. One singular second. He is 17. His birthday is coming up next month, and he'll finally be a legal adult and can vote in this country. For now, he can't even vote, but he played for St. Louis City tonight and did 27 minutes and did pretty good for a 17-year-old. Like, I can't complain much. I think throwing him into the fire tonight could have been bad, but all things considered, I think it was fine. Obviously, conceding literally 20 seconds after he got onto the pitch for the first time ever is unfortunate, but I think he did okay. I think his development's not going to be hurt by this match. If anything, future matches could cause problems, but this match is fine. The way it panned out. So I'm happy with Tyson Pierce. I'm excited to see more of him probably next year. I'm sure we'll see his other call up. And he'll get one more appearance this season, but I don't expect anything significant from Tyson Pierce until next year. He'll probably start getting some more serious looks, kind of like Makai Joyner did this year. So very excited for the prospect pool. for St. Louis City SC. Obviously, there's a lot of other guys in the works, too. There's your Brendan McSorley, Emil Jaskalainen, Miggy Perez. There's all sorts of other guys. I mean, Joey Zielinski came up, from a draft pick. Jay Reed made his way up. This is nothing new here. City is developing pretty well, and that's a very promising sign. So happy with that going forward with Pierce.
One thing, Amy Bratton comes in and says that Yaziel Orozco needs to be on the team. I would agree with that one. I would also agree with Tyson Pierce. I would also agree with Mekhi Joyner. By the way, in classic MLS faction, we are a little confused about a roster rule that we thought we knew everything going into it, because the ruling is worded weirdly on the MLS rule book. Off-roster homegrown players, City has 2 of them. Mekhi Joyner is 1, Tyson Pierce is another. And the rule lists that they are ineligible for MLS league season competition except as short-term call-ups. Off-roster homegrown players may appear as short-term call-ups in up to 6 MLS seasons matches per game. So I assume appear means full-on appearance, played the game, which was Mekhi's 5th today. So I guess he does have one more before they got to bring him up. I was operating on it just actually when they use the call-up, that's using a call-up.
See,
but
that's
I guess
the impression
it's
I was under.
I
had it explained to me on Twitter.
Mekhi might be out of appearances.
He's going to get the contract.
He might be. That might have been his 6th. He might be done. He might need a new contract until he plays again, or he could have one more. Thank you, MLS, for making it extremely ambiguous. By the way, we've been operating this entire time as if you use the call up, that's using a call up. But I guess you can use call ups and then not play the player, and you're fine, which seems like a weird way to just kind of boost your bench up in certain games without actually having to take a hit for it. It just seems like an odd thing. I completely thought this entire time that the bench and he sat for 1 game after being called up, and that was the second San Diego game in May. But it appears that one way or another, by hook or by crook, he's going to get the contract extension, and I expect it. And man, he almost had a game-changing goal on that free kick from Marcel Hartl, who did have a very good
defensive
game.
Play.
Yes, it was a very good defensive play.
There.
Yeah.
You love to see, the highest paid player on the roster seeking out on a set piece opportunity. You're like young upcoming player who has limited minutes on a set piece when you have other guys like Joao Klaus in the box hunting. Like that's a really cool sign to see. There's a lot of trust in this team in Mekhi Joyner. I have a lot of trust in Mekhi Joyner going forward. It's going to be really exciting, specifically next year, to see what he can do.
Your thoughts on playing a 17-year-old? I know you're very worried about these kids' mental health. Your thoughts on playing the 17-year-old Tyson Pierce today?
I didn't love it, but
Christ.
Like I said, the way the match panned out, I have no problem with it in hindsight.
Fantastic.
But on the conservative side, I don't think I would have made the decision to play him away from home at Real Salt Lake. Now, to call him up, yes, but I don't think I would have subbed him into the match given how chaotic and just not good the flow of the match was. I think that's not a good match. But once he was subbed in, honestly, I don't think it was bad enough where it was problematic. And he was only in there for 27 minutes. All he did was shake the nerves off. So it's not problematic at all. I'm not saying that's problematic at all, but I don't think
he
I
had
would
to
have
be
done
the sole man in front of a 4-man back line. And at one point, he was the sole man in front of a 3-man back line, while Celio Pompeu and Jean De Silva were your wing backs. We haven't even talked about the formation that they were playing in the last 25 minutes, which was insane. By the way, we're doing all this, Will, and at the same time, there's some people on Twitter are very confused about why we're talking about anything other than the fact that this team doesn't win a lot of games. So I think, to their point, we should just be telling everybody how much this team sucks, and then just kind of wrapping things up.
Well, if you want me to say that, Rock, this is about to be a monumental moment in history. I need you to just listen up for a moment.
I can't do that.
The playoffs are out of reach.
What?
The playoffs are not happening.
Wait, Charlie Smith's in the chat.
The playoffs are out of reach.
Charlie Smith was saying this. I mean, he was saying this, 16 minutes ago. I was saying it 16 days ago.
Months ago.
I was saying it 16 days ago. But yeah. Obviously, the playoffs are out. In fairness to Will, because Charlie goes, hey, I remember Will saying the playoffs are possible. That was 9 possible points ago, 12 possible points ago. How many possible points ago was that?
I don't think I didn't say the last 2 matches, but 9, I also didn't say they were out of reach.
That was 9 possible points ago when Will was saying that it was possible. So in fairness to him, he has not said the words in that way the last 2 shows that we've been on. So give some credit to him. He has entered the reality that this is not a playoff team, as now the math certainly has doomed them to that point.
Yeah. The math is tough. You have 15 points in 21 matches? Are we at? I think we're through 21 matches now. And that's really, 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 really bad. That's really bad. And obviously there's a lot of reasons for this. I'm not saying the team is so incredibly bad and that's why this has happened. Obviously, the biggest culprit is in fact injuries, whether you want to admit it or not. That is the reality.
People don't want to. People really don't want to admit that.
Right.
But while we're having a conversation, because people are complaining that they haven't won any games, one win in the last 17 matches. It's pathetic, and they just want us to rip them apart because it doesn't matter how many wins, it doesn't matter if you score a goal, unless they're getting better. We shouldn't be having this conversation. And to that point, I think that actually means better. We can have this conversation because here's a little graph from our friend, again, McLackbot, who does these fantastic team profiles on his app. And I want you to look at these two things because on the left is the first 15 matches under Olaf Melberg, and on the right was the first 5 matches under David Critchley. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a subjective thing. You cannot argue with facts right now. They have improved under David Critchley. It is an inarguable, provable fact. Right there, look at the graphs. It's undeniable they have improved under David Critchley, which is why talking about the little parts of these games is what matters. Okay? They are offsides less. They have more open play, non-penalty XG per shot, which means they're getting better shots. They have more. They have a ton more open play, non-penalty XG, which means they're getting better shots in open play, in both XG and in shots. They're getting better set piece shots. They're getting better big chances created. They were at 1.1 big chances created under Olaf Melberg. They're getting 2.8 per game. That's one of the top numbers in the entire league under David Critchley, which he's talked about. Yes, the defense has problems, but even the little things, shots have improved. Shots conceded. It wasn't. Yes, that has gotten a little bit worse under under David Critchley than it was under Olaf Melberg. We know the defense has regressed a little bit. Fine, but everything else, for the most part, has gotten better. The cross box entries, they use the cross. They need to use the cross less to get inside the box, but they're getting inside the box more. They're getting more tackles in the final third, as you can see there. That's a completely different one there in the bottom left there. And then they're committing fouls at pretty much the same rate. So just everything is different.
The PPDA is something David Critchley talked about, I think, like after his very first match.
Yeah, 16.5.
That improvement is drastic.
16.5, one of the bottom numbers in the league, up to a midpoint in the league at 13.9.
That's a drastic change. I know that
they dribble the ball less. I think that's another thing here is they need to use less one-on-one things. And part of that takes away from Celio Pompeu, but I'm fine with that right now because I want my team having to use less dribbles per game to try to make things happen. I want things to happen in the build-up. So I mean, they are a better team. It's unequivocal. You can't argue with it. They are a better team over the last 6 matches than they were in the first 15 under Olaf Melberg. And yes, it's not good enough. There's no doubt about that. The players will tell you it is not good enough. Yep. They can't go down 2-0 like that because they can't be chasing these games. But the point is they are improving, and that's what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the improvements that are being made because you might want it, but I'm never just going to sit here and completely doom and gloom. I'll criticize players. I'll say I've not. Again, and see, this is the problem with Will is that I go a little bit negative to try to, feel the feelings of the fan base a little bit because this team does suck for the most part. And then I'm getting accused of being pessimistic and stuff like that. I'm just trying to bring the realism. And the realism is this team is bad. This team is not going to the playoffs. This team failed in their primary objective that was given by the ownership at the beginning of the season. Bottom line, they failed. Usually I'm not cool with just saying a season's a failure, but when you put your hand in the ground and say that, you failed. Yeah. And so this team is a failure of a team for that in that point. But I'm not gonna not stop watching the games. I'm not gonna stop bringing you some analysis of what happens because this team is going to keep going on, despite what Eddie Money 100 wants in the comment section for St. Louis City to crumble. They're going to be here, which means we got years to build things. So we're gonna talk about the long-term things. Who's working, who's not. And so when a young player like Yasiel Orozco makes his City debut and has a great game, when Tyson Pierce, who's 17 years old and is potentially the future of your midfield, makes his debut, we're going to talk about it without a scowl on our faces. And it's weird to me that people want to hear that. I guess people really just are dipped
People
in the
like to
hatred
watch
now.
the world
They
burn,
really do.
man.
They really do.
People like to watch the world burn. I don't like to watch the world burn. I like to watch Yasiel Orozco have an absolute killer performance. And looking at this Berkey comment, by the way, I do want to mention, I think the likelihood of City losing Berkey is so low. He's not going to want to leave the States right now. So his options are basically Chicago or here. And I think Chicago, did they just fill, or they're rumored to fill their DP slot, I think, right now. But they have a DP slot open. I don't think they're going to sign him.
They also have a young goaltender that's one of their most
Exactly.
promising prospects. And today I watched them let a defender walk up to the box with about 7 very casual steps and then just rifle one into the top corner past their goalie. And I feel like that's not going to make Berkey happy.
In City right now have the highest paid goaltender in the league and have the opportunity to give him a raise without even making him a DP. He's not going anywhere. I'm so confident that he's going to stay. He's the captain of this team. He cares so much about this team. I know Chicago's not that far.
You can
he can
get
take
a little
the train
flight,
up there and go see the new wife.
Hell, he can probably get a plane that does that flight in like 55 minutes. I'm guessing, a helicopter, something like that. Yeah,
I would listen
again. Get the raise, and you and the girl back and forth.
I know it's a hard conversation, and a lot of fans don't think Berkey's going to stay because the team isn't doing well. And at the start of the season, I was leaning towards agreeing that if the season didn't go well, Roman Berkey would leave. But based on where we're at now and everything we know about his personal life and about the team and his contract situation, I genuinely find it so hard to believe that he goes to any other club. So I don't want to worry about, is Berkey going to leave conversation until the offseason, because that's when we need to really start kind of having that conversation. For now, we need to talk about our incoming signings like Fayu Fall, record-breaking transfer, which is probably going to get announced on Monday, if I had to guess, at 9 a.m. when City always tends to do things. That'll be exciting. Of course, they're going to want to give good news. City will immediately after a tough loss on the road. And when you have 1 point in your last 5 matches, it might be good to go ahead and announce the record-breaking transfer that's coming in with the Senegalese 21-year-old center back. Those are the things that I want to talk about, not is Roman Berkey going to leave in all these doomsday scenarios of we should sell the team and move the team and blah, 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 because it's not realistic. It's a good team that had terrible injuries. They're going to sell people. People are going to come in, and they might make the playoffs next year. You never know, because they might have made the playoffs, probably would have made the playoffs this year had they not been horribly injured. And I'll stop on my train right there.
All right, I'll keep rolling on my train. I'm going to tell everybody about our friends over at DraftKings, where the crown is yours, and that's because you can make some moves right now on DraftKings with our promo code STL Sports in their new game, and that is the Pick 6 app. St. Louis sports fans, we are deep into the season, unfortunately for St. Louis City and their record, but if you're like me, you're locked into every pitch, pass, and play, and that's why we've teamed up with DraftKings to bring you Pick 6, the all-new way to play daily fantasy sports. Right now, all new customers who play just $5 will get $50 in bonus picks. That's 10 extra picks to keep the action going all week long. It's easy to start, fun to follow, and gives you a whole new way to stay connected to the game. You just log on, pick between 2 and 6 of the stats to choose from. You just see a stat, whether it's hits, runs, and RBI is a common baseball one, or strikeouts allowed for a pitcher. You pick more or less on those. You combine between 2 and 6 to keep boosting up your odds, and then you put it in just like that. And if you win, well, you get cash just like that from our friends over at DraftKings. It's easy to start, fun to follow, again, and it gives you a whole new way to stay connected to each and every game. It's one of the reasons why I stay connected to anything that's not Cardinals baseball. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app today and use code STL Sports when you sign up, only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
You guys didn't hear it, but during the disclaimer, Will said Yasiel Orozco.
I just looked at Rock and I smiled and I went, Yasiel Orozco.
Do you have any other reasons that you're just still so jazzed about this that we haven't talked about?
About Yasiel Orozco?
Because the roster construction factor of it all is really interesting to me too. Because, and I was tweeting about this, it seems that Kyle Hebert's taking a little tumble in the depth chart over the last few weeks. And Jay Reed obviously has had some struggling games, hence why we got Orozco at left back. And really, it changes some things going forward, because we've been talking about the need for another young left back. And here comes Orozco again, who you just added this past transfer window and who's been giving you City 2-time. Now he comes out and gives you this kind of game again against not the best team in RSL, but it potentially changes, what we were talking about when what's in the pipeline all of a sudden, Tyson Pierce is probably a center midi going forward, and Orozco might be the left back that you try to work out with Jay Reed and say, okay, we got 2 young players.
That's what I'm
Let's see
about to
if we
say.
can forge the lines here.
Yeah, that's exactly the point I was about to go into. You don't have to go buy a 19-year-old stud left back from Germany and let him compete with Jay Reed when you have Yaziel Orozco, who you signed for free from another MLS team that didn't want him, and you can give him a really cheap supplemental roster slot. You don't even have to give him a senior roster slot, and you can have both of your potential starting left back players on your supplemental roster. That is the type of composition in a roster that is how you win the league. I mean, think about what LA Galaxy did last year with John Nelson, former St. Louis player. It's a similar type of situation. When you get those low salary players who can overperform, like Jay Reed, like Yaziel Orozco, and especially if you have 2 in that position who are competing, one of them is always going to be hot. So you can always rely that somebody in that position is going to be doing fine. That is such a weapon for a City team that's desperately struggled to have quality at left back outside of Giannis Horn in his short time at this team when he wasn't injured. So I'm just so excited right now about Yaziel Orozco. And honestly, I have to apologize to him because I looked into him in the offseason. I knew he was a solid player. I figured he'd be with City 2 for this year and then maybe have the opportunity in 2026 to earn some call-ups. I wasn't familiar enough with his game. He has proven me wrong. He was ready this year.
Are you doing a verbal meme right now?
Yes, I am.
All right, keep going.
Yaziel Orozco, I was not familiar with your game. I apologize. And now I want you on my supplemental roster as soon as possible. So we have 2 supplemental roster slots, St. Louis City, by the way, that are open, completely unused. You wouldn't have to move anybody. You can sign Joyner and Orozco to those slots, and it won't change anything about your team. You just add those players, and they can play full time. And, obviously you lose the opportunity to sign other players into those spots, but it's very hard to find players that make a low enough wage to fit into that category regardless. So I would be very happy to see the 2 of them fill those last 2 roster slots. I think that solves your left back issue for the remainder of the year, and you can look into solving that full time in 2026. If you're unhappy with it by the end of the season, I think it's the perfect situation. You still have a senior roster slot open. That's obviously going to get filled by Fayu Fall probably this week, but then you're going to have more opening up because I'm sure Nielsen and Alm and maybe even Klaus, potential players that could be transferred out and sold. You're going to have other slots opening up. So you still have the opportunity to invest in a right winger or in a CDM or whatever you see fit. But your back line situation with Fayu Fall and Orozco becomes completely solved for 2025 for the rest of this season. And then in 2026, you make the final decision. I think that is just masterful, kind of lucky, to be honest with you, if Orozco works out. But with Fayu Fall, that's masterful management. I think this is just really, really, really good stuff by the front office. I'm so excited right now because Yaziel Orozco is such a random thing to have potentially solved like a pretty significant issue with this roster. So anyway, I'm just pumped up about this.
Them spending any semblance of cash that has shown that they believe in players, and so them going and getting a guy. I think to us we forgot about it because they stashed him at City 2 immediately.
Right.
But I think we shouldn't overlook that Lutz has been operating on a shoestring budget up until I guess 48 hours ago, and so him spending the money to get Orozco, how much was it again? Was it like $200,000?
I want to say they signed him for free from RSL.
Did they?
I'll check on that. Keep talking.
I thought they had. Because he was finishing his loan across the pond with some like Irish team or something like that, and so he was finishing his loan. I think he was expiring, so they didn't pay any money. That's my apologies. Again, it fell so far under the radar. I've kind of forgotten the exact details, other than it's some random loan that he was on from RSL. So anyhow, a good move there. Credit to Lutz as he's finally going places other than Germany and Scandinavia to find his talent, including our boy Fayu Fall. I'm sure we wanted to get into this, Abo, with a great text or a great chat here. And guys, if you have any questions, you have any comments, put them into the chat. We'll put them up here. We'll get talking about them. Toy Shirt needs a break. He's being misused. Arguably has no place within the current setup. Joyner should be getting those minutes.
He's had a break.
I have been, he's been coming off the bench for the majority of the game, for the majority of the 6 games that Critch has taken over. I think this was his second start in the 6 games since Critch took over. It might have been his third. But yeah, I would agree with you. I was just in a previous show arguing that Mekhi Joyner should be your starting right wing. Someone disagreed.
Yeah, that's me. That's me.
So
yeah.
Cedric Toyshirt today had a better game than he's had previously. He had a key pass. He had how many touches? Let me get his.
He had a 6.8 SOFA score rating. He had 29 touches, 73% accurate passes, 11 of 15, one key pass, one accurate cross on one cross, one long ball, which was accurate. Touches in the box.
He had 2 touches in the box the last time, and that was one number that really bothered me about Cedric Toyshirt's game. So if you look at touches in the opposition box, Cedric Toyshirt finished the game with 3. And so while he did produce a couple good shots, 2 shots. Yeah, I'm with you, Abbo, on this one. I've been with you for a lot. This has been one of my key points. Again, I want Mekhi. I'm 100% with you. I want Mekhi getting those minutes. I think today was an interesting decision, changing things up, putting Celio on the bench, who has been struggling for a little bit and did have a solid game coming off the bench. Again, Simon, because he's a right-footed player and is a striker, him cutting in from the left side makes a lot of sense. But I still think this team isn't better when Seti starts. I think Seti has a use in this team, but I think it's later in the game as the sub. I think the team works better right now with some other wingers starting. I would argue Joyner. I would argue Pompeu. Right now, the team disagrees with that point, but I agree with you 100%, Abo. Not necessarily that he needs a break. He just, I agree definitely with everything else you put in. He's being misused. They need to crystallize and kind of settle what his role is and stop having him do all these different things.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think that's a good point. There's one more player that I kind of forgot to mention that I do want to talk about, and that's Joey Zielinski.
Go at it.
The number 71 subbed in at the 71st minute. I'm just noticing that, and I thought that was kind of funny. That's not what I want to talk about.
We're going to talk about we're going to talk about the formation for the final 20 minutes.
Yes,
there we go.
That's what I want to talk about.
He comes in the 71st
He plays
minute.
a right center back with Josh Yarrow and Yaziel Orozco. I love it. The balls on David Critchley to do that is so funny to me. I loved it, and it worked, and they did good.
Naysayers on Twitter, we're not supposed to talk about the last 20 minutes in that formation. That was insane. They put John De Silva at right wing back. By the way, again, my kingdom for a healthy Rasmus freaking Alm.
It'll never happen.
It'll never happen, but I know. But God, it would have been so perfect at that spot. It would be so perfect. So Jande was your right wing back. Celio's your left wing back, and he's playing a back 3 of Zielinski, Yarrow, and Orozco. And then Tyson Pierce, the 17-year-old in his debut, is your holding midfielder. Volum's pushing up with Hartle, Pompeu. At different points, it would have been Bescher and Mekhi Joyner, Klaus. Yeah. It was an insane decision. And again, David Critchley has always said they're going to push for wins and they're going to push for points, and they're not just going to try to eke things by. They're going to try to push for things. And there's another point here, and I'll bring in some of the people on X who are getting a little mad. They play more exciting, but they've given up playing any semblance of defense, and we're not good enough unit to try sub goals for getting scored on. This team is built for a more defensive setup, in my opinion. I think you and Olaf Melberg would get along very greatly, my good friend. But you're not wrong. This is what we're talking about. They're getting torn apart in transition. Goals number 2 and 3 are not completely just luck. How they got the balls where they are is because you got torn apart in transition, probably because of bad turnovers from your midfield or your attack. Maybe some slacking from the defense. We're not 100% sure yet. We haven't got a chance to go back and watch it. It was rough. It was bad. But you're right. They're making that decision. But again, they had to take a decision in late May between we're going to try to grind through every single game and get whatever points we can under Olaf Melberg, or we're going to turn things over to David Critchley. We're going to switch back to the scheme we play. And yes, because of the roster, it's probably going to be a lot like 2024 and late 2023, where we can't control the ball, we get scored on in transition, but we have some fun doing it. And yeah, you're right; they're not winning, but they are eminently more watchable, and they are playing, and they are a better team. And that's something. It might not be enough for you, but it's something.
I actually posted, but it's so funny you mentioned that. I posted before the match. I think it was on Instagram. I said at the bottom of my post, I was like, I just hope both teams have fun. It was that was fun. We had a little fun in transitional moments in that match. It was entertaining. I do want to address just this one message we got, which was 5 goals in the game is unexpected. Is that a lack of defensive focus? And I'll say no. I think that is a result of one singular goal in this entire match that was repeatable, which was Joao Klaus's header on a set piece. The other 4 goals were very freak in the way that they were scored. It was 2 absolute golazos from Salt Lake, an own goal that's super unlucky for both teams. So I think, honestly, the high goals being unexpected, that is correct. That was unexpected. I don't think it's a lack of defensive focus. I think it's more of a showing of just how bonkers that match was in general, and kind of what happens when you throw things at the net. Good things can happen. It's kind of like hockey. They say get pucks on net, good things might happen. You get bounces sometimes. It's very much the same in soccer, and that's what happened in 2 of the goals. And then sometimes when you just throw something on net, you score a golazo, which Real Salt Lake did twice. So I think that's kind of more of the storyline on that note, Rock.
Absolutely. Not a great game for St. Louis City SC. The transition defense is undoubtedly a problem because the midfield is a huge problem for this team right now. They need to get them healthy. They need to get the defense healthy. And it'd be nice to see what this team can do. And we know if Kessler might not be healthy, Baum might not be healthy. Kessler's supposed to be coming back. Baum's supposed to be back for Dallas. But either way, there could be another center back arriving for St. Louis City. In the meantime, again, earlier today on the pregame show, and then later on what would happen after that pregame show, we're talking about Fayu Fall, and it looks like it's all but a done deal. I then received some DMs from some Norwegian reporters who had some DMs from the player himself.
Yes.
And it seems like it's a done deal, ladies and gentlemen.
I got that same screenshot.
It seems like it's a done deal that Fayu Fall's on his way here. So by hook or by crook, again, it might not be Baum, it might not be Kessler, but there will be 2 healthy center backs for City going forward. And we'll see what happens with these young players like Orozco. Going forward, though, I don't care about the mentality. The season is mathematically, in my opinion, done.
Yeah.
Play your 21-year-old center back. Play whatever young players you arrive. Play Tyson Pierce. Play Makai
Throw JGR
Joyner.
at CDM. Why not?
Throw JGR at CDM. Maybe play a back 3. Oops, sorry, I know
Rock.
Rock. I'm sorry.
Rock, stop it. The snowman is melted. It is summer.
But like Jay
we're
Reed,
done.
Jay Reed at left wing back. Tyson Pierce at right wing back.
No, I'm not even opposed to it. I'm not even
all of a
opposed to it,
sudden,
genuinely.
you're getting all your best players in some of their best positions by playing that back 3. But apparently, we're dogmatic against doing that, so we're not going to see it. Bottom line, play the kids, play the young players. Let's get healthy, and let's see this team play some soccer that actually looks like they could build towards the future. And hey, maybe even a Roman Berkey contract extension so that we don't have
the fans don't feel so worried.
That sort of Damocles hanging over our head the entire offseason, or heck, the entire next month or so. We're going to wrap up this City Central post game. Again, it was an exciting one, but City SC still lose 3-2. Any final thoughts from you, Will Bratton?
Yeah, I got one thing to say.
Yaziel Orozco.
I
freaking knew it.
Give him the roster slot. Give Makai Joyner the roster slot. This is not reactionary at all from me. I would never do that.
No.
And also to all my Joao Klaus haters out there, I'm going to leave it there.
We did not talk about that, but honestly, I'm surprised I haven't got a single message with somebody complaining about him missing the header at the end of the game.
Yeah,
that's just a rough one.
That is a tough one, but he did in fact score.
He connects with it and puts it completely wide of the goal.
Yeah, after bodying his defender too, which is the worst part. Like, he literally puts himself into a tap-in situation by completely dismantling his defender and misses the header, which is tragic.
One last point from Samuel Howe. I thought that was the case too, but seems like they want to play long ball offense. I thought we were a transition team. I don't know why you think those two things can't coexist.
Yeah,
I'm very confused. Transition and long ball offense, you can combine those
hand in hand.
Yeah, you can combine those things in a lot of ways. Like it takes really good teams to do small ball transition offense, and usually, and I think the difference between is you're usually going to be a longer ball team when you with a press. Where I think when you're doing more of a counter pressing team, you end up being a shorter passing team. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like a higher pressing team, you're naturally going to be creating longer lines and bigger gaps, so you're going to need the long ball to cover those things. But if you're a counter pressing team, more than just a pressing team, that naturally connects to then playing a more tiki-taka style, which is why you see teams like Pep Guardiola play, a lot of counter pressing, and that naturally builds with tiki-taka. But I think the pressing way and the high line and these big gaps actually works with City playing a long ball offense.
Yeah, and I honestly think it's important because Roman Berkey is such a key component in moving the ball for that back line. So I think it's important to play the long ball transitional kind of game. I think it's just a great weapon for City.
All right, that'll wrap us up here at City Central Postgame. Thank you for everybody today. We got 2 shows for you to go back and watch on STL Sports Central. We dove into things like press triggers. We dove really deep into the Fayu fall transfer that we expect to be happening. And we dove into a couple other things with the formations of St. Louis City over the last few games under David Critchley, comparing them to Olaf Melberg. We dove into all that on Boots on the Ground, which is on STL Sports Central. So if you want more X's and O's, dive into things from St. Louis City SC, go back and watch our Boots on the Ground video from earlier today. Again, if you want more breakdown of what you saw today from St. Louis City SC, because while it was a 3-2 loss, yeah, you can call it glazing, but fine. We're going to find things that are interesting and fun to talk about, even if the team does suck. And they do suck. There's no doubt about it. Based on the record, it's a bad team. They're not going to be in the playoffs. We got to start looking forward, and at least there are some positive things to be looking forward with some young, talented players who you got to see tonight against RSL. We'll have more midweek with another episode of Boots on the Ground right here on STL Sports Central. For Will Bratton, I'm Matthew Rocchio. For all our wonderful people in the chat, thank you so much for contributing throughout the show, and for our wonderful sponsor, DraftKings Sportsbook, where the crown is yours. Thank you very much for presenting everything right here on STL Sports Central. Have a great night, St. Louis. I guess I should be saying pretty soon. Have a great morning. We'll talk to you later.